So, what gives you the right to claim you are an expert on building a foundation for health?
Well, I think, the only way that we can lead or any expertise or any authority is to have those ideas crystallized in our own body. Body and mind, there is no separation, even though in the Western world we have separated that, but there is no separation. Mind is an embodied process. So you are the sum total of all your ideas that are crystallizing inside your own structure.
So why don't we dig into it? Tell me your story. Where are you from? What happened? How'd you get to where you are today?
Well, depends on what angle of the story that you want, because I've got many stories. But I was born in Connecticut. My parents were hippies. We left for the summer of love in 1967. Ended up in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco. So right then and there, my parents thought different. And from there, I grew up both in San Francisco and on the East Coast, and had some challenges there at home. I left home very early when I was 14 years old, and headed out on myself. And I was incarcerated as a youth, and then I did a lot of studies when I was in juvenile hall, and when I got out, I was able to graduate from a regular high school, and then I continued on to college, and always used my brain. And then I learned how to lift weights when I was incarcerated as well. And so I used that time to rehabilitate myself, because I watched the kids that were in foster care, and I watched it just be a revolving door of sickness and illness and psych meds and all sorts of stuff. And it was a dead end road. And I witnessed it, because I was there for a long period of time, and I would witness the kids come in and out of the foster homes and go from one facility to the next. And juvenile hall was just one of those facilities. And
back up. When did you first experiment with drugs?
When I was 13, 12 or 13, I started smoking pot then. And so my research into that, it really fucks with your development. And so that was 12 or 13. Then I started experimenting with psychedelics. And it wasn't until, my late teens and 20s when I started drinking. I didn't even like drinking in the beginning. And so, and then I just got caught up with that. I started modeling, and the travel and party lifestyle in the modeling industry was combined. And every new city that I went to had a nightclub that was usually run by the mafia, and the models used to hang out there. And so it's a big business,
Yeah.
And so I got a little caught up in that, my own success. And, I didn't know who I was. And I put a lot of that in my book. I didn't know who I was and what I was doing. And so I was just chasing paper.
How did you end up going down that path of becoming a model? Like, how did that happen? So you go from, your whatever your life was, you're in juvenile hall, and you're thinking a lot and realizing kind of what you want your life to look like. Is that correct? And then how did you?
No, I had no idea, Tim. That's I was programmed by the system, right? Hustle and grind, and sit down, shut up, consume, conform, and comply, which is the industrial age school system. And so I didn't know anything I was doing. I was chasing paper, just like anybody else. Get a job, get an education, go out into the real world, and then work for the rest of your life. And so and I'm not afraid of work at all. It's just what the heart desires and what my gifts are. The human being's gifts, they're not honored. So you're designed to stick your square peg in a round hole, and we don't always fit into those molds. And I think, a lot of your work revolves around addiction. And I see people getting into addiction, self-medicating the pain that they're going through from the lies that they've been sold and told in this culture that we live in. And there are no victims, so I don't ever want to play the victim card. It's just, where are we at in human history? My second book is coming out very soon, called Brave New Man. It's an allegory to Brave New World, Aldous Huxley's dystopian novel from the 50s. And so, it's really about becoming clear and understanding what our hearts desire, and getting a clear picture on where in the direction that you want to go as a man, because if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. And we see this all over the internet. People are really struggling right now with their lifestyle. They have no base core values and a platform to build from. They're just going through the motions and trying to get a job or an university education, which was supposed to help you propel forward. But now what we're realizing is that it's a complete indoctrination. It's brainwashing at its best. And so people are working in industries that are detrimental to the future of humanity, selling pharmaceutical drugs, selling agribusiness, pesticides, neoinsecticides, the big shell game with real estate and everything else. And so, we're caught up in the way the systems are. And so it's just time to break free of the systems, total freedom, and go beyond what we've been told and sold. And so, and the baseline for that is your own health, your own journey to self-love. And what is self-love? It's not just another hashtag on the internet, right? It has to do with, your hydration and water intake. It has to do with your organic nutrition intake, or you're getting sick from eating the commercial foods, seed oils, gluten, etc. And so if you go into the mainstream, you can guarantee that you're going to be metabolically dysfunctional. 9 out of 10 people are. And then you've got then that opens up the area for all these psych meds. And then once you get on the psych meds, that creates other imbalances, or maybe you get an injury and then they prescribe you painkillers, Oxycontin, which is synthetic heroin. And lo and behold, synthetic heroin, fentanyl, lo and behold, we've got major problems with these issues. And so people are going to self-medicate the best way they can. What's socially acceptable? Well, alcohol, pharmaceutical drugs, marijuana, and these things open us up for more self-medication. We get trapped into our own addiction cycles. And so we're managing our addictions to the degree we're managing our stress. And most people don't know where our stress is coming from, and they think that stress is an emotional outburst, but that's the sum total of being overwhelmed. And so I put in the book the 7 factors of stress so people can manage and mitigate themselves. They know where it's coming from. So, for example, thermal stress, which we partake in, right? We go in the extreme heat, the sauna, and we go in extreme cold, the ice bath. And this helps us regulate our autonomic nervous system, so we're self-regulating and self-managing. Otherwise, we're going to self-medicate, and that is a road that leads to a lot of pain. Isn't that right, Tim?
It definitely does. It definitely does. So we're starting to get into, we're talking about a lot of the things that you're an expert on. And so I've got the question before I really wanted to, I did want to hear a little bit about being a model in Milan and kind of what happened there. I don't know if you want to give me a couple of a quick story on how you became a model and what happened and what your lifestyle looked like while you were a model, and when did you realize that's not what you wanted?
So it took me a little while because I just thought I was a young college kid. Okay, this is the way you make money. This is easy money or big money or whatever idea I had in my head. And so first and foremost, people would walk up to me in the malls or just in public and go, "Hey, are you a model? Have you ever thought of modeling?" Agents, people like that would walk up to me and say that. And after hearing that a handful of times, I figured, let me take some pictures and go in and see some agencies. And I was in New York City for a summer, took some pictures, went into Wilhelmina. They were very interested in working with me, but I lived on the West Coast at the time. I was in Southern California. And so I went to one of their sister agencies, and the Germans shoot their catalogs in sunny places because it's freezing in Germany. And if you got to shoot your summer catalog, you can't shoot it there. So they would go to places like Miami, and then San Diego opened up, and they would shoot their summer catalogs in the winter. And San Diego, they thought was going to become another Miami Beach for the German catalogs. And so my agent, Nina Blanchard, at the time, had opened up there. And then I quickly moved to LA and started interviewing with agents from Milan. I got a contract with an agent in Milan, and I quickly left after there. And that's, this is 30 plus years ago. when doing the men's fashion shows or doing, their magazines. Like we had GQ over many years for fashion in this country, and now that's usually a celebrity on the cover. Well, over there they had Vogue and about, I would say, 5 or 6 major men's fashion magazines, and so it was a good place to go get work and tear sheets and work inside fashion, and then come home and make the commercial money in New York and LA and Tokyo and other places. And so what I didn't realize, there was so much dysfunction, psychological dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, and it was getting played out there. There was a lot of sexual innuendos, a lot of homosexuality, and that's just something that I wasn't into. Yet it was there was just unspoken, rules and gatekeeping, and I didn't like that. I grew up on the street, and I usually handled my business, put my best foot forward, put a good product out there myself, the photographs, my resume, and lo and behold, somebody be gatekeeping, and I wouldn't get certain auditions. I also had digestive problems, and I used to bloat, so the agents would be ruthless, and they'd be like, "Honey, no auditions for you today. You look fat," And so I was like, okay, I mean, what does that mean? I feel I have indigestion issues. I've got all sorts of issues. I had asthma growing up. I was eating the commercial food supply like everyone else, TV dinners, Captain Crunch, and Pop-Tarts. And so this created imbalances. So again, I'm not a fatalist. I'm an eternal optimist. And so our curse is our gift. And so there's 2 forces that guide everything: yin, yang, masculine, feminine, inhalation, exhalation, up, down, light, dark. So my curse was my gift. All my digestive issues helped me dig deeper into holistic health and really, what am I made up of? The nutrition, etc. And so that was the beginning of that journey. So very positive. It got me into the health world and helped me educate myself. And I was economically motivated because my work depended upon that. So I did my first 10-day juice cleanse. I looked in the mirror. I looked 10 years younger. It made me look and feel amazing. And also with my digestive issues, whether it was from vaccines or whether it was from antibiotics, in my baby book, I had, ear infections when I was younger. And, that's directly related to the vaccines and the antibiotics. And so lo and behold, whatever happened to my digestion, again, was a gift. And for the last 33 years, I have studied internal purification, herbal medicine, fasting, and all other forms of healing. And I worked with a lot of indigenous healers as well over the years. And so that's how I got into modeling. Somebody said I should take some pictures. I started taking some pictures, and then I started going down that road. Then I ran into some of my own blockages as far as being successful. As an entrepreneur, I've learned to fail my way to success. But in that industry, it was like I put out a good product, and then I got into the gatekeepers, and it was robbing my soul, and it really pissed me off. And there was nothing I could really do about it. But the alcohol and drugs were free, so I just went out and partied. Right, idle hands are the devil's work. So I could work 5 days out of the year and pay my bills. So I had all this free time on my hand, and I got caught up in my own dysfunction. And it wasn't until, hundreds of people told me, hey, you're wasting your potential. Like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, I'm partying too, but what are you doing? And so I really started to question that. And after hearing it 100 times or so, I was like, yeah, there's something of value to pay attention here. And I started going to the 12-step meetings, and I recognized that step 11, there was a je ne sais quoi about the guys that would speak about step 11. Through prayer and meditation, we sought, higher realms of understanding, or, however that step goes. And I was just like, there was something special about the meditation guys, the guys that would talk about meditation. And so I started to research and investigate in that, and I heard about these meditation retreats. And so somebody turned me on to Vipassana meditation, and I had moved to Hollywood from Miami at the time, and wanted to continue my career as an actor. And I realized I couldn't, create a career or start a career at my age while I was still drinking and partying. And so I had to get my shit together. And so it was the meditation. I was waiting tables at the time, and another waiter said, "Oh, I sat the granddaddy of all meditation retreats, these Vipassana retreats from 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒 𝐿, and they're 10 days in silence." And so it's not a lot of theoretical elements. It's really a lot of practice.
To get a free copy of the 12-step guide that I created for you, click on the link in the description below.
So 10, 12 hours a day of meditation. And it was like an instant lobotomy. Well, it wasn't instant. It was 10 days, right? Very intense 10 days, no walk in the park. And so, but that rebooted my system. And I sat 11 of those courses in a span of about 6 years, and I was practicing a couple hours a day. And it really helped heal my nervous system. And it really helped me, dig deeper into myself. So Vipassana meditation, really helped me out from there. And then that allowed me to smile from my heart in the auditions. And I had a lot more success, especially with television commercials. And it just helped me dig deeper. And then I was working with an herbal company in the Amazon because I'd been studying herbs for about 15 years previous to that. And these herbs that I started taking were extremely powerful. And I won a trip with the company, and I went down to the Amazon, and I kept elevating my consciousness to a higher level and realized that, we're all in symbiotic relationship with this earth. And the way we're treating the earth with industry, it's destroying our ecosystem, right? And not in a hokey climate change, global warming, totalitarian tiptoe kind of way, because we got to get beyond oil. And these electric cars are no better for the environment, potentially much worse for the environment than we're making it out. And so oil, is our top-down destructive component. It's helped with Manifest Destiny and help us get around the world. But now what are we going to do? So I had some very powerful visions in the Amazon. I was drinking the ayahuasca, the powerful herbal medicine down there, and I had some very clear visions. And the final one was that humanity makes it from the precipice of ecological disaster that we find ourselves at. And so, we live in the United States of America. We haven't drilled for oil in Yosemite yet, or, any major national park that has beauty like the Grand Canyon or something. But if you go down into South America or Africa, we just decimate lands and give people a slave wage to pull it out of the earth. And if they don't play those games with us, we give them economic sanctions. And so I read John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, to really understand the way of the world and the world that I live in, so that I can affect change in the world, and positive change, not just change, but transformation of human consciousness. And we're going through this already. I studied a lot of the Mayan temples. I went there on pilgrimages. I went to the Incan temples. There has been technology and understanding that is still unexplained by our anthropologists and historians. The Nazca lines, the Egyptian pyramids, right? Human beings didn't lift those stones, right? It's impossible. There's been mathematics done on that. And so there's something much more than we've been told and sold. And then you look into the history of propaganda and Edward Bernays, who is Freud's nephew, and you see the manipulation of human consciousness. And we see this in television advertising. That's why people feel like shit about themselves. They're programmed to feel like shit about themselves. And again, back to that self-medication component, which then falls into addiction. And we're managing our addictions to the degree we're managing our stress. And if we don't know where the stress is coming from, it summates in the body. And then boom, back again to the self-medication. And so I think if we self-medicate ourselves with the fundamental baselines, the movement, the hydration, the nutrition, the sleep. There's so much misunderstanding around sleep. Sleep is the way the human body heals itself. It's the anabolic phase. There's so many people. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. Most men my age, I would say basically anybody that's in the gym is on TRT, hormone replacement therapy. So you're paying a pharmaceutical company to manufacture your chemical messengers inside your own human body. And so this is not a natural way. There will be a price to pay. And this goes along with all pharmaceutical drugs. Just look at the side effects of anything that you're taking. Download the side effects from the manufacturer of those and ask yourself, is that what you want? And or look at your last doctor bill. Is this what you're being treated for? Is the side effects from these medical drugs? So people aren't using the common sense. It's been subjugated for what's been force-fed down the pipelines of the news media, again, by psychological design. Edward Bernays was Freud's nephew, and he wrote the book Propaganda. So I say the final frontier, the battlefield right now is on the human mind, right? And it's affecting the children. They're coming after the children because they want to program the children. Anyways, I'm going a little too sideways. And so getting a little carried away. But again, I saw some powerful visions. I'm very clear on what's going on. I'm connected to my heart and I'm moving forward.
So what gives you the right to claim you are an expert on building a foundation for health?
Well, I think, the only way that we can lead or any expertise or any authority is to have those ideas crystallized in our own body. Body and mind, there is no separation, even though in the Western world we have separated that. But there is no separation. Mind is an embodied process. So you are the sum total of all your ideas that are crystallizing inside your own structure. And so 9 out of 10 Americans, or 9 out of 10 people, are metabolically dysfunctional right now. So 70% of the American people are obese or overweight. You've got anxiety, depression, suicide amongst men. These things are all of our statistics are going through the roof. And so J. Krishnamurti says it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. And most people are trying to get their square peg into the round hole. And so for me to have any kind of authority, it has to live inside my body and mind and my lifestyle. What have I been able to create? Well, I have 2 children. I came from a dysfunctional home, and I've done the best I can. I'm not perfect. I've done the best I can to break the chain, right? I have 2 wonderful children in their teenage years. I was fucking hell on wheels when I was a teenager. And so there was no listening to anybody. And so I have children that are very knowledgeable, very well behaved, very happy, right? That's the true test, right? How happy they are, how much I can pull them off the devices. And we had zero media there for many years until coronavirus happened. And then all of a sudden, all the kids are on Zoom for hours at a day. How the fuck is that? Human body's meant to move. Movement is necessary for health. And so how are you going to sit a kid in front of a computer for 6 hours? That's detrimental to their development. So I've done my best to pull them away from the systems at the same time, helping them be strong inside the systems. And so leading by example, walking your talk, that's the only way I can have, my real authority. I'm happy to take off my shirt. I always do. And again, I'm not on anabolic steroids, PEDs, any kind of synthetic drugs. And I live the natural lifestyle. I'm not saying it's right or wrong if anybody does anything different than that. I'm just saying this is what you get. You get clarity of mind. You get strength in the body. You get less aches and pains, more peace and harmony, good sleep, a hard boner. This is what we want, right? We want our stuff to function. And when it gets into dysfunction, that's when we get into problems mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. We start comparing ourselves to other people on social media and their highlight reel, right? Why don't we have our what's the opposite of a highlight reel? Let's have all our vulnerability poured out there. Let's get the reality out there. And I also postulate authenticity is the new commodity. Get with the program. If it's all bravado, that's short-lived. Or what we have here with the Liver King on $12,000 worth of PEDs, telling you it's liver, that he's getting his results for his, ripped body, his overgrown, overdeveloped muscle body, right? And so, but that's lies. It's lying, cheating, and stealing. So we go back to the virtues. We go back to all the religious texts have the same axioms, right? Live in alignment with the truth or some form of the truth, right? And that is going to be displayed in your biology, physiology, and psychology. It's hard for me to learn from someone that's like this and doesn't have good posture, has a gut blown out, right? They're soft. It's very hard for me to learn from that. And you see all varying degrees of that all over the internet. My mentor is the great Paul Chek. He can still deadlift at 61 years old, about 450 pounds. And he has 15,000 students worldwide. They're usually the world's top trainers that works on sports teams and et cetera. And so I want to learn from people that have what I want and desire. Again, back mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I don't want to paint a picture that there's any perfection. I have plenty of shortcomings. I have plenty of issues, and I consider that spiritual fodder for my own awakening, right? Never playing the victim. And so I'm grateful for all the challenges. It's helped me become the person that I am becoming. And so, but look, like all the martial arts masters, they teach fundamental principles. What do they teach? Punch, block, kick. Punch, block, and kick. As an expert at higher levels, you may need nutrition. You may need sleep, right? So it starts going into philosophy. You may have a spiritual awakening. You may require one to go deeper into your martial arts practice. Well, this is no different. The body needs sleep. The body needs hydration. We are in symbiotic relationships with the earth, with each other, nature. And I cover this all in my book. The most important in chapter 1 is legacy, dream, purpose. Because if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. And like me and my modeling world, there I was, not knowing where I was going, not knowing what I was doing. And then I got caught up. And so I think it's most important fundamentally for men to have direction and purpose in their life from their heart's desire, not from me or my mind or some other talking head on the internet, from your heart's desire, and getting very clear on that mental picture. Now you're programmed how to monetize that, and that's not what I teach whatsoever. Get your heart's desire clear, do what you love, the money will follow. And so it's like putting the cart before the horse with the education that we've been taught in the industrial age school system. So again, I don't want to get too sideways. I hope I'm answering your questions.
I'm hearing lots of good stuff. It's like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, they're all connected. They're all connected. I know if I'm spun out mentally, emotionally, it affects my physical performance. It affects me physically. I was at Optimize, which both of us are familiar with Optimize, and I was hanging out in the sauna with a guy, and he was talking about how his back is all screwed up, and he was talking with I don't remember, it was like a Reiki professional or something like that, and she was asking him about his, like, what's going on in his life. And it's like, that's so appropriate. That's not the norm. The norm is like, my back is screwed up, so let's figure out what's going on physically, which,
or take a pill.
Physical, that's part of it, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, what's going on there? Because that's, and I know for me, I'm training for this half marathon right now, and I have a coach, and she writes my workouts for me, and I do intervals, and my intervals are timed. And if I'm spun out emotionally, spiritually, physically, my results are not as good. It's very obvious to me that I need to sit in meditation. I need to journal. I need to work through whatever it is that's going on in my life before I'm going to perform physically. And that speaks to everything. And it's just, for me, it's very clear. And the other, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, just get your mind right, period, on all aspects, and claim forth that which you desire. Because it's not
I love that you're talking about purpose too. And I know everybody has to have a purpose. Our sober living program is based upon our 5 pillars: accountability, support, structure, community, and purpose. Everybody has to have a purpose. And I really loved what you said about having a purpose that's aligned with your values, that's aligned with your heart. And so figuring out, and I think a lot of people are just blowing in the wind. And if you're just blowing in the wind, you don't really have a purpose. It's like, it's so easy to to relapse. It's so easy to go back to your anxiety, your stress, your overwhelm, whatever it is that you have going on in your life. If you don't have a purpose, if you don't have something that you're waking up in the morning for every single day, and I do believe the money will follow. I mean, you need to be intentional about it. I mean, it doesn't just fall in your lap. However, doing something that having a purpose is so important for people to be healthy.
Well, yeah, and I do want to say this: work with excellence in the stepping stone job that you're in. Because how do you expect to be excellent in your own dream if you're not excellent everywhere else? As above, so below is the natural law of correspondence. As within, so without. And so it's all interconnected and interrelated. And so be excellent in the shitty job that you have. Grow out of it. Or you'll be surprised at a manager or a CEO that recognizes a certain work ethic. And so I'm not talking about advancing up the corporate ladder, but you can have whatever you desire. You have to get the mind right first.
If you got value from this video, if you heard what you needed to hear, be sure to like it. Comment if you've got a question or you have something to say. Subscribe to the channel. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism, whatever it may be. So if you or a loved one is struggling and you need some guidance and you need some direction, reach out to us. Our contact information is down below, or you can go to our website, CamelbackRecovery.com, whether it be detox, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services, whatever it may be. Like I said, we can either help you or make sure that you get sent in the right direction. We help people all over the country, all over the world for that matter. I'll see you on the next video.